The Texas sun blazed mercilessly across the Houston suburb, turning asphalt into shimmering rivers of heat. Inside the two-story colonial on Magnolia Drive, Sarah Mitchell stood before her bedroom mirror, smoothing the fabric of her cream-colored blouse. Today marked her 47th birthday, though the reflection staring back seemed to belong to someone who had lived far longer. Fine lines radiated from the corners of her eyes, etched deeper by years of forced smiles and swallowed suspicions. Downstairs, the kitchen smelled of vanilla and butter. A 3-layer red velvet cake sat cooling on the marble counter, its frosting waiting to be applied once the layers reached room temperature. Sarah had baked it herself, just as she had done every year of their marriage. Marcus preferred homemade to store-bought, always commenting on how bakery cakes tasted artificial, lacking the soul that came from hands that cared. She wondered if he noticed any more, if anything she did registered beyond the mechanical motions of maintaining their household. The alarm clock on Marcus's nightstand read 6:45. He typically woke by 7, showered, and left for his construction management firm by 8:30. Their routine had calcified over 23 years of marriage, each day following the previous like identical beads on an endless string. Yet something felt different this morning. Sarah sensed it in the quality of silence hanging over the house, dense and expectant. Like humidity before a thunderstorm, she descended the curved staircase, her hand trailing along the polished banister they had installed during the renovation 5 years ago. Back when she still believed renewal was possible, when fresh paint and new fixtures seemed capable of breathing life into something slowly dying. The hardwood floors gleamed beneath her bare feet, cool despite the summer heat already seeping through the walls. In the kitchen, Sarah started the coffee maker, listening to its familiar gurgle and hiss. Through the window above the sink, she watched their neighbor, Mrs. Chen, watering her roses, the elderly woman moving with the patient deliberation of someone who had nowhere else to be. Sarah envied that simplicity, the absence of complications that came with a long marriage, sustained more by habit than affection. Marcus appeared in the doorway, his presence announced by the subtle shift in air pressure. He wore his usual work attire, pressed khakis, and a polo shirt bearing his company logo. His salt and pepper hair was still damp from the shower, combed back from a face that had once been striking, but now carried the worn quality of someone perpetually distracted. "Morning," he said, his voice flat, automatic. "Happy birthday to me," Sarah replied, unable to keep the edge from her tone. Marcus blinked, momentary confusion crossing his features before recognition dawned. "Right, happy birthday." He moved toward the coffee pot, avoiding her gaze. "Big plans today?" The question hung between them, perfunctory and hollow. Sarah measured her response carefully, weighing whether to voice the disappointment already curdling in her stomach. "I thought we might have dinner together. Just the two of us, since Jacob's away at college. Their son had left for the University of Texas at Austin 2 months ago, leaving behind an emptiness that seemed to expand daily. Sarah missed his presence, the way his energy had filled the spaces between her and Marcus, providing distraction from the distance growing like mold in dark corners. Marcus poured coffee into his travel mug, his movements brisk, practiced. "Tonight might be tricky. We've got that project deadline in Katy. Could run late." Sarah's fingers tightened around her own mug. How many times had she heard variations of this excuse? The projects that ran late, the clients who demanded attention, the emergencies that always seemed to arise precisely when she needed him present. She had stopped believing in coincidence years ago. "It's my birthday, Marcus." "I know." He finally looked at her, his expression a mixture of guilt and irritation. "I'll try to make it back by 7. We can do something nice." The word try carried no weight, no promise. Sarah recognized it as the verbal equivalent of crossing fingers behind one's back. A gesture meant to provide plausible deniability when the inevitable excuse materialized later. Marcus's phone buzzed on the counter. He snatched it quickly, his body angling away from her as he glanced at the screen. Sarah caught the briefest flash of a name before he silenced the notification and slipped the device into his pocket. The gesture was smooth, rehearsed, the kind of motion that came from repetition. "Who was that?" Sarah asked, though she already knew he wouldn't answer truthfully. "Work, just confirming this morning's meeting." His eyes didn't meet hers. The lie settled between them like a physical object. Sarah could almost see it, tangible and ugly, adding to the pile that had accumulated over months, perhaps years. She wanted to confront him, to demand truth, but fear held her tongue. What if her suspicions were confirmed? What if the life she had built, however flawed, shattered under the weight of spoken accusations? Marcus drained his coffee and set the empty mug in the sink. "I should get going. Traffic's going to be hell." He moved toward her, his kiss landing somewhere near her cheek, missing its mark. "We'll celebrate tonight. I promise. Another empty promise to add to the collection." Sarah watched him leave, hearing the garage door rumble open, his truck engine roar to life, then fade as he backed down the driveway. The house settled into silence again, and she stood alone in the kitchen with her cooling coffee and the birthday cake that suddenly seemed pointless. She spent the morning attempting distraction, laundry, vacuuming, returning emails she had been neglecting. Her part-time work as a freelance graphic designer provided enough income to feel independent without the demanding schedule of full-time employment. It had seemed ideal when Jacob was younger, allowing her to be present for school events and sick days. Now it simply meant she had more time to notice the silence, to catalogue the small betrayals that accumulated like dust. By noon, the August heat had transformed the house into an oven, despite the air conditioning running constantly. Sarah stood before the refrigerator, staring at the ingredients she had purchased for Marcus's favorite meal: ribeye steaks, twice-baked potatoes, fresh asparagus. Her mother's voice echoed in her memory, advice dispensed during their last phone call 3 days ago. "Men stray when they feel unappreciated," her mother had said, her tone carrying the certainty of someone who had survived her own marital challenges. "You have to remind him why he married you. Cook his favorite foods. Wear something flattering. Show him you still care." The advice felt archaic, a relic from a different era when women were expected to absorb their husband's indifference and transform it through sheer force of domestic excellence. Yet Sarah found herself following it anyway, clinging to the hope that effort might bridge the chasm between them. Her phone buzzed with a text from her sister Linda, who lived in Dallas. "Happy birthday, sis. Sending love and a gift that should arrive later today. Call me when you can." Sarah smiled despite herself. Linda understood in ways their mother never could, having divorced her own husband 5 years ago after discovering his affair with a co-worker. The family had been scandalized, particularly their mother, who believed marriage was a covenant that survived all transgressions. But Linda had emerged stronger, rebuilt her life with a fierce independence that Sarah secretly admired. She typed a quick response. "Thank you. We'll call later." Cooking birthday dinner for Marcus. Linda's reply came immediately. He better show up this time. The implication stung because it was accurate. Marcus had missed her 45th birthday entirely, claiming a work emergency in San Antonio that required his immediate presence. Last year, he had arrived 3 hours late, offering apologies that tasted like ash. Sarah had forgiven him both times, choosing belief over confrontation, hope over reality. The afternoon crawled past. Sarah frosted the cake, applied the finishing touches with practiced precision. She set the dining room table with their good china, the set they had received as a wedding gift and rarely used. Candles, cloth napkins, the crystal wine glasses that lived in the cabinet gathering dust. She transformed the ordinary into something special, investing the evening with significance Marcus probably wouldn't notice or appreciate. At 4:30, she went upstairs to change. The dress she selected was burgundy, fitted but not overtly provocative, the kind of garment meant to suggest effort without desperation. She applied makeup carefully, enhancing features that time had begun to soften. When she returned to her reflection, She saw a woman trying too hard to reclaim something already lost. Marcus's phone call came at 5:45, exactly when she expected it. "Sarah, I'm so sorry, but this project is a complete disaster. The inspector found code violations, and we need to remedy them before we can proceed. I'm going to be here until at least 9, maybe later." She listened to his voice, noting the slight strain that indicated he was lying. After 2 decades together, she could read the subtle variations in his tone, the tells that betrayed dishonesty. But instead of challenging him, she simply said, "Fine." The single word carried more weight than a paragraph of accusations. Marcus heard it, his silence stretching for several heartbeats before he spoke again. "I'll make it up to you. This weekend we'll go somewhere nice. That Italian place you like?" "Sure, Marcus." Sarah's voice was flat, drained of inflection. "Sarah, I mean it." She ended the call before he could finish the lie. Her hand trembled as she set the phone down, rage and heartbreak warring inside her chest. She had prepared everything, invested hours into creating an evening he now dismissed with casual excuses. The rejection burned deeper than any previous slight, perhaps because it came on a day meant to acknowledge her existence. Her value? She stood in the kitchen staring at the beautifully set table, the expensive steaks waiting to be grilled, the cake she had baked with her own hands. All of it suddenly seemed absurd, a monument to her own willful blindness. How many times would she allow herself to be disappointed? How many excuses would she accept before acknowledging the truth she had been avoiding? Her phone buzzed again. Not Marcus this time, but an unknown number. Sarah almost ignored it, but something made her answer. "Hello, is this Sarah Mitchell?" The voice was female, young, uncertain. "Yes. Who's calling?" A pause, then, "My name is Brittany. Brittany Flores. I think we need to talk about Marcus." Sarah's blood turned to ice. The kitchen seemed to tilt, walls pressing inward as her worst fears crystallized into reality. She gripped the counter for balance, her voice emerging as barely more than a whisper. "What about Marcus?" "I've been seeing him for 8 months now. I didn't know he was married at first, I swear. He told me he was divorced. But then I saw your picture at his office and I—" The woman's voice cracked. "I'm so sorry. I thought you should know." The words struck like physical blows, each one landing with devastating precision. Sarah's mind raced, processing information she had suspected but never confirmed. 8 months, not a brief indiscretion, but an extended betrayal. A parallel life Marcus had constructed while maintaining the facade of their marriage. "Why are you telling me this?" Sarah asked, surprised by the steadiness of her own voice. Brittany exhaled shakily. "Because he promised to leave you. He said once your son graduated high school and left for college, he would file for divorce. But Jacob's been gone for 2 months now, and Marcus keeps making excuses. I'm tired of being the other woman. I'm tired of secrets." Sarah closed her eyes, waves of humiliation washing over her. This stranger knew intimate details of her life, her son's departure, the empty nest that had become her reality. Marcus had shared their private life with someone else, transformed their struggles into justification for his infidelity. "Does he know you're calling me?" Sarah asked. "No, he'd be furious if he knew. But I don't care anymore. You deserve to know the truth." The conversation ended shortly after, both women exhausted by the weight of revelation. Sarah stood motionless in her kitchen, the phone still pressed to her ear long after the line went dead. Around her, the carefully prepared birthday celebration mocked her with its cheerful presentation. The candles, the china, the frosted cake, all of it suddenly nauseating in its naivety. She should have felt devastated, shattered by confirmation of Marcus's betrayal. Instead, a strange clarity descended, cold and sharp. All the suspicions, the unanswered questions, the gut feelings she had dismissed as paranoia, they coalesced into certainty. She wasn't crazy. She hadn't imagined the distance between them. Marcus had simply chosen someone else. Sarah moved through the house in a daze, her mind cataloguing details with mechanical precision. The photos on the mantel, frozen moments from a life that now felt fraudulent. Their wedding portrait, both of them young and hopeful, unaware of the corrosion waiting in their future. Jacob's school pictures, chronicling his growth from gap-toothed child to confident young man. Had Marcus been faithful then? Or had there been others before Brittany, a string of betrayals Sarah had failed to notice? She found herself in Marcus's home office, a room she rarely entered. His private space, filled with blueprints and project files, the detritus of a career that had always taken precedence over their marriage. Sarah opened his desk drawers systematically, unsure what she sought, but certain she would recognize it when found. The burner phone lay hidden beneath a stack of contractor magazines in the bottom drawer. Sarah stared at it, her hands trembling as she powered it on. The password proved easy to guess, Jacob's birthday. The irony wasn't lost on her, Marcus using their son's birth date to protect communication with his mistress. The text messages painted a vivid picture. Endearments. Marcus never spoke to her. Promises of a future together. Complaints about his marriage presented as justification. Sarah read them with detached fascination, watching her life dissolve through another woman's eyes. Marcus portrayed her as cold, distant, someone who had lost interest in their marriage years ago. The lies were so comprehensive, so detailed, they almost seemed believable. One message stood out, sent just 3 days ago. "Can't wait until we can stop hiding. Soon, I promise. Once I figure out how to tell Sarah, we can finally be together." Sarah's laugh emerged bitter and harsh. He had been planning his exit while she planned his favorite meals, maintained his home, preserved the illusion that their marriage still held meaning. The depth of his duplicity staggered her. She replaced the phone exactly as she had found it, closed the drawer, and returned to the kitchen. The clock read 7:15. Marcus wouldn't arrive until much later if he came home at all. Perhaps he was with Brittany now, celebrating Sarah's birthday by pretending she didn't exist. The rage that had been building throughout the day finally found its voice. Sarah grabbed the carefully frosted birthday cake and hurled it against the wall. It exploded in a shower of red velvet and cream cheese frosting, the impact deeply satisfying. She swept the china from the table, each crash of shattering plates providing momentary release. The wine glasses followed, crystal fragments scattering across the hardwood like displaced stars. When the destruction was complete, Sarah stood amid the wreckage, breathing heavily. The dining room looked like a crime scene, evidence of violence made manifest. She surveyed the damage with grim satisfaction, then methodically began cleaning. She couldn't leave this for Marcus to find, not yet. First she needed a plan. As she swept broken china into a garbage bag, Sarah's phone rang again. Marcus, probably calling with another excuse. She almost didn't answer, then decided she wanted to hear what lie he would offer this time. "I'm still at the site," he said without preamble. "It's going to be a long night. Don't wait up." "I won't," Sarah replied, her voice eerily calm. "Sarah, are you okay?" "You sound strange." "Just tired, Marcus. Very, very tired." She ended the call and resumed cleaning. By 8:30, the dining room showed no evidence of her outburst. The broken dishes were bagged and hidden in the garage. The cake remnants were scraped from the wall and disposed of. The house returned to its usual immaculate state, surface calm, concealing the turmoil beneath. Sarah poured herself a glass of wine and sat in the darkened living room, formulating the next steps. Divorce would be expensive, messy, emotionally devastating. But staying meant accepting humiliation, transforming into a woman who tolerated betrayal. Neither option appealed to her, yet one had to be chosen. As she sat in the darkness, contemplating her fractured future, she didn't notice the headlights pulling into the driveway, didn't hear the car door close softly or the tentative footsteps approaching the front door. The doorbell's chime startled her from her thoughts, unexpected and jarring at this late hour. Sarah rose slowly, wine glass still in hand, and moved toward the door. Through the frosted glass, she could make out a female silhouette, slender and young. Her heart began to pound as realization dawned. Brittany had come to her home. The mistress who had called hours earlier now stood on her doorstep, and Sarah understood with sudden, terrifying clarity that this birthday would end far differently than she had ever imagined. Sarah's hand trembled on the doorknob as she stared at the silhouette beyond the frosted glass. Every instinct screamed at her to ignore it, to pretend she wasn't home, to avoid the confrontation looming on the other side of that door. Yet something deeper compelled her forward, a need to see the woman who had dismantled her marriage, to put a face to the voice that had shattered her carefully maintained illusions. She opened the door slowly. Brittany Flores stood on the porch, bathed in the amber glow of the entry light, younger than Sarah had imagined. Mid-20s perhaps, with dark hair pulled into a sleek ponytail and eyes that carried both defiance and uncertainty. She wore jeans and a fitted tank top despite the evening heat, her car keys clutched tightly in one hand. "Mrs. Mitchell," Brittany said, her voice steadier than it had been on the phone. "I know this is crazy, showing up here like this, but I needed to see you face to face." Sarah stood blocking the doorway, her wineglass still in hand, studying the woman with clinical detachment. Brittany was pretty in an unremarkable way, the kind of attractive that came from youth rather than distinctive features. Nothing special, nothing that explained why Marcus had risked everything. "You have some nerve," Sarah said quietly. "I know. But I'm tired of hiding, tired of being Marcus's secret." Brittany shifted her weight, defiance creeping into her posture. "He's been lying to both of us. You deserve to know that, and you think you're doing me a favor?" Sarah's laugh was sharp, humorless. "Coming to my home on my birthday to announce you've been sleeping with my husband?" Brittany flinched. "I didn't know it was your birthday." "Of course you didn't. You don't know anything about me, except what Marcus has told you. And I'm guessing those were carefully edited versions of the truth." Sarah took a long sip of wine, her eyes never leaving Brittany's face. "Tell me, what did he say about me? That I'm cold, distant? That our marriage died years ago?" The flush creeping up Brittany's neck confirmed the accuracy of Sarah's guesses. "He said you stayed together for your son, that once Jacob left for college, you'd separate. And you believed him. I wanted to." Brittany's voice cracked slightly. "He made me feel special, like I was the one he'd been waiting for his whole life." Sarah recognized the narrative Marcus had spun. She had been the recipient of similar promises 23 years ago when they first met. He had a gift for making women feel chosen, singular, irreplaceable. Until the novelty wore off and he moved on to the next conquest. "How old are you?" Sarah asked. 26. The number landed like a punch. 26. Barely older than their son. Sarah felt nausea rising in her throat, the full scope of Marcus's betrayal crystallizing. He wasn't just unfaithful. He was predatory, using his age and position to manipulate someone young enough to be his daughter. "Does he know you're here?" Sarah asked. "No, he thinks I'm home." Brittany glanced over her shoulder nervously, as though expecting Marcus's truck to appear at any moment. "He'd be furious if he knew. Then why risk it?" "Because I'm done being patient, done waiting for him to keep his promises." Brittany's jaw tightened. "I called you hoping it would force his hand, make him finally choose. But when we talked earlier, he acted like nothing was wrong, like I hadn't just blown up his life." Understanding dawned on Sarah with cold clarity. "You haven't told him yet?" "No." Brittany's defiance wavered. "I wanted to see you first, to understand who I was competing with." The word competing hung between them, absurd and offensive. Sarah wasn't competing. She was the wife, the woman who had built a life with Marcus, raised his child, maintained his home. Yet here stood this girl, framing their situation as some kind of romantic rivalry. "You're not competing with me," Sarah said, her voice low and dangerous. "You're just the latest distraction in a pattern that probably started long before you and will continue long after." Brittany's eyes widened. "You think there have been others?" "I know there have been." Sarah didn't actually know, but the certainty in her gut felt like truth. Marcus doesn't do well with monotony. Once the excitement fades, he needs something new to feel alive. The devastation crossing Brittany's face might have elicited sympathy under different circumstances. But Sarah felt only a grim satisfaction watching the girl's illusions crumble. Let her understand what it meant to love Marcus Mitchell. The inevitable disappointment, the slow erosion of trust, the painful awakening that you were never as special as he made you believe. "He loves me," Brittany said. But the words lacked conviction. "He loves the idea of you. The excitement of sneaking around, the ego boost of a younger woman's attention. But love?" Sarah shook her head. "Marcus doesn't know how to love anyone but himself." A car turned onto their street, headlights sweeping across the front yard. Both women froze, watching as the vehicle approached. Sarah's heart hammered against her ribs, adrenaline flooding her system. If Marcus came home now, found them together, everything would explode in ways she couldn't control. But the car continued past, taillights disappearing around the corner. Sarah released a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. "You should go," she said to Brittany, "before he actually does come home. But we're not finished." "Yes, we are." Sarah's voice carried finality. "You wanted to see me. Now you have. Whatever happens next is between Marcus and me." Brittany hesitated, seeming to want to argue, then nodded slowly. She turned to leave, then stopped, looking back over her shoulder. "For what it's worth," she said quietly, "I really am sorry." Sarah watched her walk to her car, a modest sedan parked at the curb. The engine started, headlights flared to life, and Brittany drove away, leaving Sarah alone on the porch with her half-empty wine glass and the wreckage of her marriage. She went back inside, locking the door behind her with deliberate care. The house felt different now, contaminated by Brittany's presence, the air itself thick with betrayal. Sarah moved through rooms that suddenly seemed foreign, questioning every surface, every object. How much of their life together had been authentic? How many moments she had treasured were merely Marcus performing the role of devoted husband while his mind wandered elsewhere? The sound of the garage door opening jolted her from these thoughts. Sarah glanced at the clock, 9:45. Earlier than expected. Her pulse quickened as she heard Marcus's footsteps in the mudroom. The familiar sounds of him removing his work boots, setting down his keys. He appeared in the kitchen doorway, his expression weary but quickly shifting to forced brightness when he saw her. "Hey, you're still up." "I managed to wrap things up earlier than expected." His smile didn't reach his eyes. "I know it's late, but maybe we could still do something for your birthday." Sarah studied him, this man she had shared half her life with, and saw a stranger. The lines around his mouth, the slight graying at his temples, the way he carried tension in his shoulders, all familiar, yet somehow alien. She had thought she knew him completely. Now she understood she had never known him at all. "Brittany was just here," Sarah said, her voice eerily calm. Marcus froze, his face draining of color. The transformation was instant and total, from casual husband to cornered animal in the space of a heartbeat. "What? Your girlfriend?" She stopped by to introduce herself. The word hung in the air between them, sharp and accusatory. Marcus's mouth opened and closed, searching for words that refused to come. His hand gripped the doorframe, knuckles whitening as though he needed physical support to remain standing. "Sarah, I can explain." "Don't!" Her voice cut through his attempt at justification like a blade. "I've heard enough lies for one lifetime." Marcus stepped fully into the kitchen, his movements cautious, calculated. Sarah recognized the expression settling over his features, the same one he wore when negotiating with difficult clients. A carefully constructed mask of reasonableness, designed to diffuse tension. "Whatever she told you, it's not what you think," he began, his tone measured and calm. "Brittany is unstable. She's been fixating on me at work, making things up in her head. I've tried to handle it professionally, but—" "Stop!" Sarah's laugh was bitter, jagged. "She showed me the texts, Marcus. Your texts. The burner phone you keep hidden in your office." His face went slack, the mask crumbling as realization struck. She had found his insurance policy, the evidence he thought safely concealed. The color drained from his cheeks, leaving him pale beneath the kitchen's harsh fluorescent lighting. "You went through my things?" Anger crept into his voice now, defensive and hollow. "Don't you dare turn this around on me." Sarah's wineglass hit the counter with enough force to crack the stem. "You've been sleeping with a woman half your age for 8 months. 8 months, Marcus. While I cooked your meals, washed your clothes, maintained your home. While I believed we still had a marriage worth saving. Sarah, please. He moved toward her, hands outstretched in supplication. Don't touch me. She backed away, revulsion flooding through her. The thought of his hands on her skin, the same hands that had touched Brittany, made her stomach turn. How many others were there? Before her? Marcus's silence answered the question more thoroughly than words could have. Sarah saw the truth written across his face, the guilt, the shame, the calculation as he weighed how much to admit versus how much he could still conceal. It didn't mean anything, he said finally. The words pathetically inadequate. None of them did. You're my wife. You're the one who matters. If I mattered, you wouldn't have needed them. Sarah's voice broke despite her efforts to maintain control. If I mattered, you would have fought for us instead of finding comfort in strangers. It wasn't about you. Marcus ran his hands through his hair, frustration and fear warring in his expression. I was going through something. Midlife crisis, or whatever you want to call it. Feeling old, irrelevant. They made me feel young again. Desirable. The admission should have hurt, but Sarah felt only a distant, cold fury. He had sacrificed their marriage, their family's stability, their son's trust, all because his ego needed stroking. Because he couldn't face aging with dignity and grace. So this is my fault somehow. Sarah's voice rose. Because I didn't make you feel young enough? Desirable enough? That's not what I'm saying. Then what are you saying, Marcus? That I should understand. Forgive you because you were feeling insecure. She moved closer to him now, her body vibrating with barely contained rage. You're 49 years old. You have a wife who has stood by you for 23 years, a son who worships you, a successful business. And it still wasn't enough. I wasn't enough. You are enough, he insisted, desperation creeping into his tone. I made mistakes, terrible mistakes. But we can fix this. Counseling, whatever you need. I'll end things with Brittany tonight. It's over. Sarah stared at him, this man she had built a life with, and felt nothing but contempt. He thought an apology and empty promises would repair the damage, restore trust that had been ground to dust under the weight of his betrayals. Get out, she said quietly. Sarah, get out. Her voice was steel now, unyielding. Pack a bag and leave. I don't care where you go. A hotel, Brittany's apartment, hell for all I care. But you're not sleeping under this roof tonight. Marcus's expression shifted from pleading to anger. This is my house too. You can't just kick me out. Watch me. Sarah pulled her phone from her pocket. Either you leave voluntarily, or I call the police and tell them I feel threatened. That my husband of 23 years has been living a double life, and I no longer feel safe around him. The bluff worked. Marcus recognized the determination in her eyes, understood that she was beyond reasoning, beyond the careful negotiations that had always allowed him to smooth over previous transgressions. Fine, he said, his jaw tight. I'll go. But this isn't over, Sarah. We're going to have to talk about this rationally eventually. There's nothing rational about what you've done. She watched him leave the kitchen, listened to his heavy footsteps on the stairs as he went to pack. The house creaked and settled around her, familiar sounds taking on sinister dimensions. 20 minutes later, Marcus reappeared with an overnight bag slung over his shoulder. He paused in the doorway, seeming to want to say something, then thought better of it. The front door closed behind him with a soft click, followed by the rumble of the garage door, the start of his truck engine, the fading sound of tires on asphalt. Sarah stood alone in the sudden silence, the emptiness of the house pressing in on all sides. She had done it, confronted him, demanded he leave. The victory felt hollow, overshadowed by the enormity of what came next. Divorce proceedings, dividing assets, telling Jacob that his parents' marriage had imploded. The life she had built was gone, and in its place lay only wreckage and uncertainty. She poured herself another glass of wine, her third or fourth of the evening, no longer counting. The alcohol dulled the edges of her pain, without eliminating it, creating a fuzzy distance between herself and the catastrophe unfolding around her. Her phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. I'm sorry. I love you. Please don't give up on us. Sarah deleted it without responding. Words had lost all meaning, become cheap currency devalued by overuse and insincerity. Another buzz. This time from an unknown number. Did you tell him? What did he say? Brittany, still invested in the drama she had helped create, hungry for details about the destruction she had wrought. Sarah's fingers moved across the keyboard before she could think better of it. He's gone. Are you happy now? The response came quickly. I didn't want this. I just wanted him to be honest, Sarah laughed, a sharp bark of sound in the empty kitchen. Brittany's naivety was almost charming, believing honesty would somehow make the situation better, that Marcus's lies were the problem rather than his fundamental character. You wanted him, Sarah typed back. Now you can have him. Good luck. She blocked the number before Brittany could respond. Whatever happened between Marcus and his mistress no longer concerned her. Let them destroy each other the way they had destroyed her marriage. The wine bottle emptied as the night deepened. Sarah sat in the darkened living room, her mind cycling through memories she now questioned. Their wedding day, Jacob's birth, family vacations, anniversary dinners, had any of it been real? Or had Marcus been performing the role of devoted husband while his mind wandered elsewhere, calculating his next escape? Somewhere around midnight, her phone rang. Marcus again. She sent him to voicemail. He called back immediately. Then again, and again, on the fifth attempt, Sarah answered. What? She's here? Marcus's voice was tight, afraid. Brittany showed up at my hotel. She's saying crazy things, threatening to tell everyone about the affair. My business partners, my clients, Jacob, Sarah, you have to help me. Sarah's grip tightened on the phone, Marcus's panicked voice grating against her already frayed nerves. The audacity of his request, that she somehow rescue him from consequences of his own making, would have been laughable if it weren't so pathetically predictable. Help you? Sarah's voice was ice. You want me to help you manage your mistress? She's out of control, Sarah. Screaming in the hotel parking lot, threatening to destroy everything. My reputation, my business. Good. The word came out flat, emotionless. Let her destroy it all. You certainly earned it. Sarah, please. She ended the call and turned off her phone entirely. Whatever chaos erupted between Marcus and Brittany was their problem now. A mess of their own creation. Sarah had spent enough years managing Marcus's disasters, smoothing over his mistakes, maintaining appearances while he indulged every selfish impulse. The wine had left her light-headed, thoughts drifting in and out of focus. She climbed the stairs slowly, each step requiring deliberate effort. Their bedroom looked the same as always. The king-sized bed with its navy comforter, Marcus's reading glasses on the nightstand, the framed photo of their family from Jacob's high school graduation. Everything in its place, a perfect facade concealing the rot beneath. Sarah stripped off her birthday dress and left it crumpled on the floor, an uncharacteristic abandonment of her usual tidiness. She pulled on an old t-shirt and crawled into bed, Marcus's side still perfectly made, untouched. The sheets felt cold, vast, the emptiness beside her both liberating and terrifying. Sleep refused to come. Her mind replayed the evening on an endless loop. Brittany at the door, Marcus's face draining of color, the shattering of illusions she had maintained for years. Around 3 a.m, exhaustion finally dragged her under into fitful, dream-haunted sleep. The pounding on the front door jolted her awake. Disoriented, Sarah checked the clock, 6:47. Pale morning light filtered through the curtains. The pounding came again, insistent, urgent. She stumbled downstairs, her head throbbing from last night's wine. Through the frosted glass, she could make out a figure, female, frantic. For a moment, Sarah thought Brittany had returned, but when she opened the door, she found someone else entirely. The woman was in her 30s, blonde, her mascara streaked down her cheeks. She wore nurse's scrubs, her name tag identifying her as Jennifer Caldwell, RN. Are you Sarah Mitchell? The woman asked, her voice shaking. Yes, who are you? I'm so sorry to bother you, but I need to talk to you about Marcus. Jennifer's hands twisted together nervously. I've been seeing him for 2 years. The words landed with surreal detachment. Another mistress. Not just Brittany, but this woman too. Sarah leaned against the doorframe, suddenly dizzy. 2 years, Sarah repeated numbly. I didn't know about you at first. He said he was divorced. Jennifer's words tumbled out in a rush. Then I found out he was married, but he promised he was leaving you. Said you barely spoke anymore, that the marriage was dead. The script was identical. The lies so perfectly rehearsed, Marcus must have used them dozens of times. Sarah wondered how many others there were, how many women had received the same promises, believed the same fabrications. Why are you here? Sarah asked, too exhausted for anger. Because last night Brittany Flores called me. She found my number in Marcus's phone. Jennifer's voice cracked. She told me about their affair, about you. We compared notes, realized he's been playing all of us. I had to see you to tell you that my husband is a serial cheater. Sarah's laugh was hollow. I'm already aware. There's more. Jennifer pulled out her phone, fingers trembling as she navigated to a photo. This is my daughter, Mia. She's 3 months old. Sarah stared at the image of an infant with dark hair and eyes that looked disturbingly familiar. Her stomach turned, bile rising in her throat. Marcus is her father, Jennifer said quietly. He doesn't know yet. I was planning to tell him next week. The world tilted sideways. A child. Marcus had fathered a child with this woman while still married to her, still maintaining the pretense of their life together. The betrayal was so complete, so devastating, Sarah couldn't process it. Does he pay you anything? Sarah heard herself ask, her voice distant, mechanical. No, he doesn't know she exists. But you're sure she's his? DNA test confirmed it. Jennifer's eyes filled with fresh tears. I thought he loved me, thought we were building something real. Instead, I'm just another woman he lied to. Sarah invited Jennifer inside, the gesture automatic, social conditioning overriding the surreal horror of the situation. They sat in the living room where last night Sarah had confronted Marcus, where their marriage had finally, irrevocably shattered. I'm going to tell him today, Jennifer said. About Mia, he needs to take responsibility. Sarah nodded. Too numb to speak. Responsibility. The word seemed laughable applied to Marcus, a man who had spent years avoiding consequences, spreading wreckage while maintaining his carefully constructed image. Jennifer left shortly after, promising to keep Sarah updated. The house fell silent again, but it was the silence of a tomb, heavy with the weight of accumulated secrets finally exposed to light. Sarah's phone, still turned off from last night, powered back on reluctantly. Immediately, notifications flooded in. 23 missed calls from Marcus, a dozen text messages ranging from apologetic to angry to pleading. The most recent, sent at 6:15 this morning. We need to talk. Brittany is making serious accusations. I'm coming home. Sarah checked the time, 7:30. He would arrive soon. She should prepare, decide what to say, how to confront him about Jennifer and the child. But her mind felt sluggish, overwhelmed by the magnitude of his deceptions. The sound of the garage door opening announced his arrival. Sarah remained seated, listening to Marcus enter through the mudroom, his footsteps heavy with exhaustion and stress. He appeared in the living room doorway, his appearance shocking. His clothes were rumpled, hair disheveled, eyes bloodshot. He looked like a man who hadn't slept, who had spent the night battling demons of his own creation. Sarah, thank God you're here. We need to... He stopped, noticing her expression. What's wrong? What happened? Jennifer was here, Sarah said quietly. Marcus's face went slack, confusion flickering across his features. Jennifer? Jennifer who? Jennifer Caldwell. The nurse you've been sleeping with for 2 years. The mother of your 3-month-old daughter. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Marcus's face cycled through emotions so rapidly Sarah could barely track them. Confusion, recognition, denial, fear. His mouth opened and closed wordlessly, a fish gasping on dry land. That's impossible, he finally managed, his voice thin and strained. I don't know anyone named Jennifer Caldwell. Stop lying. Sarah's voice was dead, all emotion wrung out of it. She was here an hour ago. Showed me pictures of the baby. Your baby? Marcus stumbled backward, his hand groping for the wall to steady himself. The color drained from his face, leaving him ashen beneath the morning light streaming through the windows. There was someone named Jennifer, but that was years ago. It ended before 2 years, Marcus. She said 2 years. Sarah stood slowly, her body rigid with barely contained fury. While you were coming home to me every night, kissing me goodnight, pretending to be a devoted husband, you were building an entire second life. A child, Marcus. You have a daughter you didn't even know existed. I use protection, always. She must be lying about DNA test. Sarah cut through his desperate rationalization. She has proof. The reality crashed over Marcus like a wave. His legs gave out and he sank onto the couch, head in his hands. For a long moment, only the sound of his ragged breathing filled the room. This can't be happening, he muttered. This can't be real. Sarah watched him with cold detachment. No sympathy stirred in her chest, no impulse to comfort him in his distress. He had created this catastrophe through years of calculated deception. Now the walls were closing in, and she felt only grim satisfaction watching him suffocate under the weight of his own choices. How many others were there? She asked quietly. Besides Brittany and Jennifer, how many women did you sleep with during our marriage? Marcus's silence stretched too long. When he finally looked up, guilt and shame painted his features in stark relief. I don't know, he whispered. I didn't keep count. The admission should have devastated her. Instead, Sarah felt only a strange clarity, as though a fog had lifted, revealing the true landscape of her life. She had wasted 23 years on a man incapable of fidelity, built her entire adult existence around someone fundamentally dishonest. I want you out, she said. Not just for the night, permanently. I'm filing for divorce. Marcus's head jerked up, panic flooding his features. Sarah, wait, please. We can work through this. Counseling, whatever it takes. There's nothing to work through. Her voice remained eerily calm. You've destroyed everything. Our marriage, my trust, our son's respect for you. And now there's a child, Marcus. An innocent baby who will grow up knowing her father abandoned her before she was even born. I'll take responsibility, Marcus said quickly, desperately. I'll support her financially, be part of her life. And we can rebuild. Start fresh. I'll change, I swear. Sarah's laugh cut him off, sharp and bitter. You'll change. How many times have I heard that promise? After the first affair I suspected but couldn't prove. After the late nights and mysterious phone calls. You're not capable of change, Marcus. This is who you are. That's not fair. Fair? The word exploded from Sarah with sudden violence. You want to talk about fair? Was it fair that I spent 2 decades being faithful while you treated our marriage like a joke? Was it fair that I cooked and cleaned and maintained this home while you were out building families with other women? Was it fair that you came into our bed night after night, touching me with the same hands that had touched God knows how many others? Marcus flinched with each accusation, but Sarah couldn't stop. Years of suppressed rage poured out in a torrent, everything she had swallowed and ignored and rationalized, finally finding its voice. I gave you everything, she continued, her voice rising. My youth, my trust, my devotion. I turned down job opportunities to support your career. I managed our home, raised our son, played the perfect wife while you did whatever you wanted. And for what? So you could humiliate me, make me look like a fool? I never meant to hurt you, but you did. Sarah was shouting now, control completely abandoned. Every lie, every betrayal, every time you chose someone else over me, you hurt me. And the worst part? I let you. I chose to believe your excuses, to trust your promises, to hope things would get better. I'm as much to blame for this disaster as you are. Tears streamed down her face, but she barely noticed them. The pain she had buried for years erupted with volcanic force, consuming everything in its path. Marcus stood, reaching for her. Sarah, please, don't touch me. She backed away violently, her body recoiling from his proximity. You don't get to comfort me. You don't get to pretend you care now that everything's fallen apart. I do care. I love you. Love. Sarah spat the word like poison. You don't know what that word means. Love is sacrifice, commitment, choosing someone every day even when it's hard. You've never loved anyone but yourself. The cruelty of the statement landed hard. Marcus's face crumpled, and for the first time, Sarah saw genuine despair in his eyes. But it changed nothing. His pain didn't erase hers, didn't undo the damage he had inflicted. "Get out," she said again, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "Pack your things and leave. If you're still here in an hour, I'm calling the police." Marcus opened his mouth to protest, then seemed to recognize the finality in her expression. He nodded slowly, defeated, and moved toward the stairs. Sarah watched him go, her body trembling with adrenaline and exhaustion. The confrontation had drained her, left her hollow and aching. She sank onto the couch, pulling her knees to her chest, trying to hold herself together as the full weight of everything crashed down on her. Upstairs, she heard Marcus moving around, drawers opening and closing. The sound of luggage being dragged from the closet. The ordinary sounds of packing, as though he were preparing for a business trip rather than the permanent dissolution of their life together. Her phone buzzed. A text from Jacob. "Hey Mom, just checking in. How was your birthday?" Sarah stared at the message, tears blurring the words. How could she tell her son that his father was a monster? That their family was destroyed, shattered beyond repair? Sarah stared at Jacob's text, her thumb hovering over the keyboard. What could she possibly say? That his father had betrayed them all? That their family was a lie built on years of infidelity? That he had a half-sister he'd never met? She typed simply, "It was complicated. I'll call you later. Love you." Upstairs, Marcus's footsteps moved back and forth. Sarah heard the zipper of his suitcase, the closet door sliding open and shut. Each sound felt like a nail in the coffin of their marriage. Her phone buzzed again. Not Jacob this time, but an unknown number. Against her better judgment, Sarah answered, "Mrs. Mitchell." The voice was young, female, unfamiliar. "This is Brittany. Please don't hang up." Sarah should have ended the call immediately, but exhaustion had stripped away her defenses. "What do you want?" "I need to warn you about Marcus." Brittany's voice trembled. "Last night at the hotel he got violent, grabbed my arm, shook me. I've never seen him like that, out of control, dangerous. I'm scared of what he might do." A chill ran down Sarah's spine. In 23 years, Marcus had never been physically aggressive toward her. But she also hadn't believed him capable of the systematic deception he'd maintained. "Perhaps she didn't know him at all. Where are you now?" Sarah asked. "In my car, outside your house." "I know it sounds crazy, but I'm worried about you being alone with him." Sarah moved to the window, peering through the curtains. Sure enough, a modest sedan sat parked 3 houses down, Brittany's silhouette visible behind the wheel. "You need to leave," Sarah said firmly. "This isn't your problem anymore, but go home, Brittany. Let Marcus destroy his own life without taking you down with him." Sarah ended the call as Marcus descended the stairs, a large suitcase bumping against each step. He looked diminished somehow, his usual confidence stripped away, leaving only the husk of the man she had married. "I'm going to stay at the Marriott downtown," he said, not meeting her eyes. "Until we figure out what comes next." "There's nothing to figure out. I'm filing for divorce on Monday." Marcus flinched. "What about Jacob? Have you thought about how this will affect him?" The question ignited fresh fury in Sarah's chest. "You should have thought about Jacob before you started cheating. Before you fathered a child with another woman. Don't you dare put this on me." "I'm not." Marcus stopped, seeming to recognize the futility of argument. "I'll call him myself." "Explain things. You'll tell him the truth? All of it?" Sarah's laugh was hollow. "Somehow I doubt that." Marcus's jaw tightened. "I'm still his father. I deserve the chance to present my side." "Your side?" Sarah shook her head in disbelief. "There's no version of this story where you're the victim, Marcus." He set down his suitcase, taking a step toward her. "I know I've made terrible mistakes, but I'm not a monster. I'm just human, flawed, and I'm sorry, Sarah, truly sorry." The apology felt hollow, empty words meant to absolve him without requiring real change. Sarah had heard variations of it before, would probably hear it again in the coming weeks as lawyers got involved and assets were divided. "You need to leave now," she said quietly. Marcus nodded, picking up his suitcase. He paused at the door, seeming to want one final word, then thought better of it. The door closed behind him with a soft click. Sarah watched through the window as he loaded his luggage into the truck. Brittany's car was still there, and Sarah saw Marcus notice it. He approached the sedan, and even from a distance, Sarah could see the anger in his posture. The confrontation erupted quickly. Marcus yanked open Brittany's car door, his voice carrying across the quiet suburban street, though Sarah couldn't make out the words. Brittany emerged from the vehicle, shouting back, her hands pushing against his chest. Sarah's hand moved to her phone, ready to call 911, when Brittany suddenly broke away and ran. Not toward her car, but toward Sarah's house. Marcus followed, his face twisted with rage Sarah had never seen before. The doorbell rang frantically, repeatedly. Sarah froze, her heart hammering. Through the frosted glass, she could see Brittany's panicked silhouette, could hear her screaming, "Let me in!" "Please," Sarah's hand gripped the doorknob. Every instinct screamed at her to leave it locked, to let Marcus and Brittany sort out their own disaster. But the terror in Brittany's voice overrode reason. She opened the door just as Marcus reached the porch. Brittany stumbled inside, gasping, her eyes wide with fear. Marcus followed before Sarah could stop him, his presence filling the entryway with barely contained violence. "Get out of my house," Sarah said, her voice steady despite the fear coursing through her. "Not until I deal with her." Marcus pointed at Brittany, his hand shaking. "She's been stalking me, spreading lies, trying to destroy my life." "Your lies destroyed your life," Sarah shot back. "I want both of you out, now," but neither moved. The three of them stood in the entryway, years of deception and betrayal crystallizing into this single moment of confrontation. The air felt charged, dangerous, like the seconds before lightning strikes. "You ruined everything," Marcus said, his voice breaking. "Both of you. My marriage, my reputation, my relationship with my son. Everything's gone because you couldn't keep your mouths shut. We ruined it." Sarah's voice rose incredulous. "You're the one who cheated, who lied for years, who fathered a child with another woman." The mention of the baby seemed to snap something in Marcus. His face contorted and he lunged, not at Brittany but at Sarah. What happened next unfolded in fragmented moments, Sarah's hands rising defensively, the decorative vase on the entry table, her fingers closing around cool ceramic, the arc of her arm swinging, the sickening crack as it connected with Marcus's temple. He dropped like a puppet with cut strings, his body crumpling to the hardwood floor. Blood pooled beneath his head, spreading in a dark halo that seemed to grow with each passing second. Silence. Brittany's scream shattered it, high and piercing. Sarah stared at her hands, at the broken vase fragments scattered around Marcus's motionless form, at the man who had been her husband now lying still and silent. "Oh God," Sarah whispered. "Oh God, what did I do?"